Cancel culture of the past. Hey, Billy Redbeard, longtime listener, first-time writer. So I was listening to an episode of the podcast where the guest starts talking about cancel culture of the 60s in regards to McCarthyism and the Red Scare. My dumbass thought that was in the 50s. I guess the guy saw a Twilight Zone episode and addressed it. Guy concludes that if cancel culture was here 60 years ago, it's never going away. Do people not realize that this shit has always been here? Yeah, people realize that there's always been people trying to end people's career. But in the past, it was always people with power. You know, they achieved something, they got to a certain level, and then they abused their power. You know, back in the day, the head of a studio could end some nobody's fucking career in a heartbeat. Right? But now I don't think ever in history, somebody that never accomplished anything nobody's ever heard of can end the career of a multimillionaire who has a fucking house with an infinity pool. I mean, that, you got to admit, that's new, right? You know what I mean? And I know that kings have been taken out of power, but like bloodshed happened. If you're going to compare like fucking storming a castle by the serfs or whatever during medieval times to moving your thumbs and hitting send on Twitter, like that's the same thing. I don't know. I think it's pretty amazing type of thing. And as always, what you see is that rich people are not evil. They're just regular people with money. That's all it is. That whole fucking thing where they try to make, white people are evil, the blue-eyed devil and all that. It's like, no, white people are you with unchecked power. When people have unchecked power, regardless, all of this shit, if women ran the world, no, them too, everybody. Everybody with unchecked power, for the most part, it's very rare that you get a Jimmy Carter. Very fucking rare. Somebody that actually has empathy and is a caring human being. And I love to this day that people still like, yeah, but the guy wasn't a good president. It's like, that's because all of those evil sociopaths wouldn't work with the guy. How many presidents? I mean, the guy's, he's out, they all just fucking buy mansions and go to fucking Martha's Vineyard. This guy is like in his 90s. He's still building houses for homeless people. Winning like Nobel Peace Prizes after he was in the White House. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. He's a very rare person, unfortunately. And if we I believe that if, male, female, gay, straight, whatever, if you could get more people like that in power and have them all working with each other, I think we'd be in a lot better position as opposed to just, looking at ties and the colors of them or whatever. Anyway, do people not realize that this shit has always been here? Just in recent memory, everything from McCarthyism targeting imaginary legions of communists to Anita Bryant trying to get every homosexual working in the public sector fired. Yes, but she's in a position of power, right? To the satanic panic of the 80s trying to ban Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, but this is the difference, though. This is the difference with all of that, is those all were organizations that had power. I mean, the PMRC was Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore. So he at that point was like a fucking, I don't know, what, congressman or a senator. They had power. They had a microphone. They had a platform. Nowadays, it can just be like, somebody that cleans a hotel room. And if the person staying in the penthouse is a fucking asshole and they get it on video, that guy him or her loses their career. That this is a whole new phenomenon. And then you combine that with the abuse of that power, which then when the trial is now on the internet, where there's no rules of libel or slander, and you can really just say whatever the fuck you want to say, which used to be just the world of powerful people with money that they could, They could set the narrative. Now all regular people can do it. No, I think this is like a new thing. And I don't think that like what was happening with Lenny Bruce is the same thing as what's happening to, say, comedians today, where it then goes into their private life. You could always get in trouble for shit that you said on stage. Absolutely. But it's just like, he came into the Hooters and, I just felt he was toxic and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you lose your agent. No, this is like a whole, like, I don't know. That's like, there's always been music. Sebastian, not Sebastian Bach, whatever the fucking real guy, classical music, and trying to compare that to, people have always gone to concerts and been a little crazy. People used to go to classical things and then comparing that to people going to like raves and dying and shit. Like shit is, can progress. That was a bad example. Fuck that, the music one. I'm just saying. I don't think that we've been like in a world where made up non-events about individuals who are telling shit jokes in strip malls can be the lead stories on late night news that is allegedly news that isn't news. My whole time growing up, I mean, comedians, I never saw George Carlin as a lead story. Like, I mean, when Richard Pryor like lit himself on fire and ran down the fucking street, yeah. But, when he fucking was shooting up his cars, I didn't hear him. I mean, I guess I wasn't watching the news back then, but I just don't think it's, I understand what you're saying. If you're basically saying that since, the beginning of time, people have tried to take out people. Without a doubt, they have. They absolutely have. But like this thing, I don't know. I think it is morphed in. I guess the musical type of thing. It's just like, jazz was big, and now rock and roll is big, and you're like, yeah, it's all music. It's all the same thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll go with you on that level. But there's definitely I find it disturbing that people now do what like these 24-hour news networks do, where they'll put a headline on a video that's misleading and they'll also edit it in a way where it's just like, you literally are like your own news network right now. You are trying to control the narrative of these stories. And the fact that, every single person, for the most part, has a cell phone with a camera and video abilities, and then they can upload whatever they shot, and they decide when they can begin it, when they can end it. There's never been a time like this. There hasn't been. So I disagree with what you're saying. I would say there's always been people trying to destroy people, but with the technology that is available now for anybody to do it, I think this is a new level. How about that? How about we agree that there's a new level? So there was a congressional hearing where rock stars and rappers had to go before government committees like some trial of Socrates shit to prove that they weren't corrupting the American youth with their damn devil music. This shit never leaves. Yeah, but that's the government. It's always been there. It always will be here. It doesn't ebb and flow. It just changes targets. No. Sometimes its target is far enough away from me personally that we can pretend we don't see it happening. Stop saying we. This is your point. Stop acting like everybody agrees with you. I 100% disagree with you that this cancel culture thing is not some new thing. It's been ramped up. Like I said, back in the day, you had to get into a position of power and you had to know enough people to control the narrative of what you wanted to have happen. You had to pay people off. You had to do all of that shit. Now, like somebody, in some ways it's good because if someone's actually doing something and they are super powerful, it gives people who aren't powerful a voice. That aspect of it is good. But with that power comes the abuse of it. And, a lot of the shit that you see out there. So, I disagree with I agree that people have always been trying to take out people, but back in the day, for the most part, it was powerful people doing it. And, everybody walking down the street didn't have the ability to create their own news story with their own thoughts and their own video and their own clips. Look at the fucking clickbait and all of that shit that they have out there that just regular people do that now. Because they know what plays and they know what they have to say to get people to click on it so they can get click on it, so they can get eyeballs, so they can get people to advertise. There's never been a time in history where every person walking down the street is thinking like they're running their own TV network. And then you combine that with how most people cannot handle positions of power, and you have this shit show that is going on right now. Which I think that it's as the similar thing from back then was it's always just been a distraction from what's really going on, what you really should be, paying attention to. Who actually has the money, who really is running things, what direction are we really going in, how politicians are all kind of paid off. They're deliberately underpaid, so they owe people favors. That whole fucking horse shit where you can attach all those things to bills. So horrific things get attached to things that people want. And then we don't get a right to vote on a lot of those, all of that bullshit. I don't know. I disagree with you. I respect your opinion. There you go. Please don't cancel me.